Today we dive into 3 gut-wrenching betrayals, a husband's hidden online empire, a chef's culinary lies, and a lover's tragic loss, each ripping trust apart in its own brutal way. I'll walk you through the raw emotions, the moments when the veil lifted, and the path forward that turned pain into power. Grab a tissue, settle in, and let these real confessions remind you that even in the darkest moments, there's a glimmer of hope waiting on the other side. I stared at the empty coffee mug, the house silent except for the hum of his laptop. A notification popped up, new moderator request approved. My heart slammed as I realized the job he bragged about for years was just a free badge on a forum. The realization hit like a punch, his entire excuse for avoiding bills, chores, and intimacy was a lie, a fabricated career that never existed. The room felt colder, as if the walls themselves were whispering the betrayal I'd just uncovered. We had been together 6 years, married for 3, building a modest life in a small apartment. He was witty, supportive, and always promised to find a real job soon. I took pride in his supposed role as a moderator, sharing it with friends as a quirky hobby. The routine felt normal. I cooked, he worked late nights, and weekends were spent scrolling through the same subreddits he claimed to manage. It was a comfortable rhythm that suddenly felt like a rehearsal for a lie I never imagined. At first, his excuses seemed harmless, too many messages to handle, volunteer work unpaid. He never cleaned, never cooked, and his deadlines always fell on our dinner time. I noticed his phone buzzing at odd hours, his frequent urgent moderator meetings that never produced a paycheck. Friends asked why I never saw his resume, and his vague answers grew more defensive, yet I kept believing his passion was genuine. The little red flags stacked up like unpaid bills, each one a quiet warning I chose to ignore. One rainy evening I decided to log into his account, thinking I might finally understand his world. The dashboard displayed a list of subreddits, each marked moderator. Below, a tiny note read, volunteer position, no compensation. My stomach dropped, the job was a title, not a livelihood. I confronted him, his eyes widened, and he tried to spin it as community service, but the truth was clear, he had been using the title to dodge responsibility. The silence that followed felt louder than any argument could have been. After the argument, I gave him 2 weeks to find actual employment or we would separate. He finally secured a part-time gig at a warehouse, and we began counseling. The trust was cracked, but we learned to rebuild on transparent expectations. Today we share chores, finances, and honest conversations. The betrayal taught me that love without honesty is a house built on sand, it collapses the moment truth surfaces. Healing is still a work in progress, but each day feels a little steadier than the last. From online deception to culinary fraud, the next confession reveals a chef who pretended gourmet mastery for years. Stay tuned as we peel back the layers of a kitchen built on illusion, and discover how the taste of truth can be both bitter and liberating. The moment I tasted the handmade pasta, something felt off. The texture was smooth, the sauce oddly sweet. I asked the chef, "Did you make this from scratch?" His smile faltered, and he whispered, "It's a secret." My stomach churned as I realized the exquisite meals I'd praised were built on boxed pasta and store-bought sauces, not the painstaking craftsmanship he claimed. That single bite cracked the illusion of a culinary virtuoso and opened a floodgate of doubt. I hired him as a personal chef for my wealthy family's estate, trusting his resume that boasted European training. For 8 months he prepared dinner nightly, and we praised his authentic flavors to friends. Our bond grew as he seemed to understand our palate, and his presence became a comforting ritual. I felt proud to host gatherings where his authentic dishes stole the spotlight, believing I had secured a rare talent that elevated our social standing. He always seemed rushed, citing tight schedules when asked about ingredient sourcing. Occasionally, the wine he paired was cheap, yet he described it as a rare vintage. He avoided grocery trips, claiming pre-ordered supplies. When I noticed a cheap boxed pasta label tucked behind a cutting board, his explanations grew vague, but I dismissed them, hoping his talent outweighed the oddities. The small inconsistencies nagged at me, like a simmering pot waiting to boil over. One evening I needed a gluten-free option for a guest. I asked him about his flour, and he hesitated before admitting he used pre-made gluten-free mixes from the local store. When I followed him to the pantry, I found a stack of cheap pasta, bottled sauces, and a half-empty bottle of cheap vodka he called fine wine. The facade collapsed. My chef had been cutting corners for years. The realization hit hard, turning admiration into disappointment in an instant. I confronted him, and he confessed the pressure to meet extravagant expectations on a modest budget. We terminated the contract, and I hired a new chef with transparent sourcing. The experience taught me to ask questions, verify claims, and trust actions over words. Now I enjoy meals knowing exactly what's on my plate, and I share this story to warn others about polished lies. Honesty in the kitchen, just like in love, is the only seasoning that truly satisfies. Our final tale shifts from deception to tragedy, where love's brief spark is extinguished far too soon. Brace yourself for a heartbreaking confession that reminds us how fragile joy can be when life throws the unthinkable. The hospital hallway smelled of antiseptic as I held our newborn, tears of joy streaming down my face. 12 hours later, a nurse's solemn voice announced my partner had collapsed. A massive clot had traveled to her lungs, stealing her life in the same day that should have been her happiest. The world tilted, joy turned to unbearable grief in a heartbeat, leaving me clutching a tiny life while my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. We met in college, bonded over music and late-night study sessions, and after 5 years we decided to start a family. Our love was fierce, our plans meticulous, a house, a dog, and a child. The pregnancy seemed like the final chapter of a perfect story, and the birth of our son felt like the ultimate affirmation of our shared dreams. We imagined a future filled with laughter, milestones, and the steady rhythm of a growing family. During her pregnancy, doctors warned about a lingering clot in her leg, but we chose to focus on the upcoming birth. She brushed off the pain, insisting she felt fine, and I reassured her with empty promises of everything will be okay. The warnings grew louder, but our excitement eclipsed the fear, and we ignored the subtle red flags that lingered beneath the surface. In hindsight, those ignored signs feel like quiet alarms we chose not to hear. The moment the nurse called my name, the world fell silent. She explained that the clot had broken free during a short walk to the shower and lodged in her lungs, causing a massive pulmonary embolism. The doctors fought desperately, but within hours, she slipped away. I held our newborn, his tiny hand gripping my finger, while my heart shattered into pieces. The juxtaposition of new life and sudden loss left me numb, caught between two extremes of existence. Grief consumed me for months, but I found strength in my son's innocent smile. I sought therapy, leaned on family, and gradually learned to live for the child we both loved. I now honor my partner's memory by sharing our story, reminding others to listen to medical warnings and cherish every moment. Healing is slow, but love can still grow from the deepest wounds, and each day I strive to turn sorrow into purpose for my son's future. Betrayal, whether through lies or loss, tests the limits of our resilience. Remember, you deserve honesty, respect, and a future where truth rebuilds what's broken. What would you have done in their shoes? Drop your thoughts below and let's support each other on this journey toward healing and honesty.